You've probably seen the headlines, haven't you? Or maybe those slick concept videos. The idea of a massive, fully autonomous semi-truck navigating uh, tricky city streets, dodging cyclists, backing perfectly into some complex loading dock. That's kind of the sci-fi dream of logistics, a full autonomy vision that grabs the attention. But, well, the sources we looked at today, they paint a different picture. The real revolution in freight, it seems, isn't starting in the chaos of the city. It's actually happening much more quietly. Right now, in fact. And it's happening in a part of the journey most of us, barely think about. The middle mile. If you're wondering, what's the middle mile? Just picture those huge, long, frankly, monotonous stretches of highway connecting major cities or regions. That's where the immediate technological shift is really taking root. A pragmatic solution using something called autonomous transfer hubs, ATH for short.
Exactly. And that's what our deep dive is all about today, this ATH model. It's quite a sophisticated framework, collaborative, really. It strategically uses both human skills and machine capabilities. The goal: move freight faster, safer, and, crucially, cheaper. Think of these hubs as smart relay stations. Their whole point is to handle that long haul while completely avoiding the logistical headache of complex city driving.
Right. So we're here today to unpack how this hybrid system works, why it seems to be gaining traction where, pure end-to-end autonomy is still facing big hurdles.
Huh?
Okay, let's unpack this then. What exactly are these autonomous transfer hubs? How do they function as a relay system? It's not just a truck stop, is it?
Oh, definitely not. Not just a parking lot, no. Think of it more like specialized surgery for the supply chain, perhaps. The core idea is called hub-to-hub, or sometimes relay trucking. And the elegance really is in the handoff. It's quite choreographed. So the journey starts with a human driver, someone who understands the local roads, the specific warehouse protocols, all that complexity. This driver handles the first mile, bringing the loaded trailer from, say, a distribution center in the city out to the transfer hub. And these hubs are strategically placed, usually just off a major highway or interstate.
Okay, so the human deals with the messy urban start, the unpredictable part.
Precisely. That's where human judgment excels. At the hub, that trailer is detached. Then comes the key step, the automated transfer. The trailer gets coupled onto an autonomous truck, a truck specifically designed and optimized for highway driving, nothing else. This machine takes over for the middle mile. It could be driving hundreds, maybe thousands of miles on those long, predictable highway stretches.
And I assume when it gets near the destination city, maybe 1,000 miles later, the process just reverses. Another human takes over for the final leg.
That's the architecture, exactly. At the destination hub, the trailer is uncoupled from the autonomous truck. Then, a different human driver, often a local expert familiar with that city's traffic and delivery points, takes the trailer for the final mile delivery into the urban area. This synergy, this interplay, that's the critical insight here. It leverages human skill where it's most needed, complex environments, and machine endurance and consistency where it performs best, the long, open road.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It feels really pragmatic. It acknowledges the current limitations of AI, especially in those chaotic, unstructured city environments. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting for me. You mentioned it's all about leveraging the predictability of the highway. Can you expand on that?
That really is the strategic heart of this solution. Autonomous systems, well, they thrive on structure, predictability. They excel on well-marked highways, consistent lanes, clear signage, relatively fixed speed limits, fewer sudden surprises compared to a city street. On the highway, they're exceptionally good at maintaining optimal speed, maximizing fuel efficiency, keeping safe following distances, mile after mile after mile.
Which is just a world away from what an AI faces trying to navigate, say, downtown Boston or LA during rush hour.
Exactly. The variables are orders of magnitude higher in the city.
You mentioned operational benefits earlier, which sounds like a polite term for potentially huge cost savings. How does restricting the automation to the highway translate into, well, actual dollars and cents for these companies?
Right. There are several key financial drivers. First, it's about asset utilization, a huge one. These autonomous trucks, they can potentially run 24/7. They don't need breaks, they don't get tired, they aren't limited by human hours of service regulations, so you could, in theory, get much, much more operational time out of a very expensive asset, the truck itself. Maybe triple or quadruple the mileage compared to a human-driven route.
Wow, okay. That alone is significant.
Then second, there's the efficiency of operation. AI drivers, programmed correctly, are generally better than humans at optimizing things like fuel consumption, smooth acceleration, minimal braking, maintaining that sweet spot for fuel economy. Across thousands of miles, those small percentages add up to enormous savings.
And I've got to assume insurance plays a role. Fewer fatigue-related accidents on those long hauls must bring down premiums, right?
Absolutely. The data emerging, according to the sources, points towards a significant reduction in accident risk on those highway segments, especially incidents related to driver fatigue. Lower risk means lower insurance costs, less vehicle downtime for repairs, fewer cargo claims. It basically de-risks the most dangerous part of traditional long-haul trucking, those long, tiring overnight drives.
Okay, so we've covered the tech, the economics, but there's a huge human element here too, isn't there? We always hear about the truck driver shortage. It's this persistent, massive headache for the industry. How does this ATH model actually impact that demographic crisis?
Well, it addresses it by fundamentally changing the job description, you could say.
Hmm.
The driver shortage is often most acute for those really grueling cross-country hauls where drivers are away for weeks at a time. It's a tough lifestyle. By automating that monotonous middle part, the AT model shifts the focus for human drivers. They become specialists in the first and final mile, shorter, local, or regional routes.
So it might actually make the job more appealing.
That's the idea. It potentially offers better work-life balance. Drivers could be home more often, perhaps even every night. This could attract a new workforce, people who want the skilled job but not the extreme long-haul lifestyle. It sort of elevates the human driver to a specialized urban logistics expert.
That makes a lot of sense. Instead of needing one person for a, 3,000-mile round trip, you need two highly skilled people handling the complex start and end points. But hang on. This whole system relies on building these new hubs. That sounds like a massive investment. Construction, land, technology, regulations. How do companies justify that kind of upfront cost?
That's a fair point. It's definitely not cheap to build these nodes. But the return on investment calculation focuses on a couple of things. First, maximizing that continuous uptime we talked about. If the trucks run 24/7, the payback period for the hub infrastructure gets shorter. Second, it's about future-proofing their logistics network. These aren't just glorified parking lots. The sources describe them as high-tech switching stations, designed for rapid, efficient, maybe even eventually automated handoffs.
So they're betting on the long-term efficiency gains.
Exactly. And also, by containing the autonomous operations to these fixed, pre-approved highway routes between hubs, they can deploy the technology faster and, importantly, more safely. It sidesteps some of the immense regulatory complexity of getting approval for autonomous driving on every single city street and rural road. This controlled environment builds experience, trust, and allows for scaling up more manageably.
Okay, that's crucial. This isn't some far-off sci-fi concept we're discussing for 2040. It's active logistics.
Yeah.
Now, so what does this mean for the supply chain today? Let's look at who's actually doing this. Who is running these models?
Yeah, absolutely. We're seeing major players proving this concept works, especially in favorable conditions. Take Aurora, for instance. They're actively running autonomous commercial routes. One key lane mentioned is between Dallas and Houston, major freight corridor.
Right, that makes sense. Long, relatively straight highway, lots of truck traffic already.
Precisely. It's an ideal test bed. High volume, good road infrastructure, often predictable weather. They're showing it can be done reliably day in, day out.
And these aren't just like demo runs. They're hauling actual freight.
Yes, real freight for real customers.
Yeah.
And it's not just Aurora. Kodiak Robotics is another big name. They've reported logging hundreds of thousands of miles on commercial freight routes already. That demonstrates the robustness of their autonomous systems, at least within that defined highway environment.
Hundreds of thousands of miles. Okay, that's serious operational data. So the tech companies are pushing ahead. What about the established logistics giants? Are they partnering up, building the infrastructure?
They are definitely not sitting on the sidelines. Uber Freight is a prime example mentioned in the sources. They're actively partnering with autonomous trucking firms, and their strategy seems quite sophisticated. They use their digital platform, which already matches shippers and carriers, to identify loads that are perfect for this model long highway miles between major hubs. Then, they strategically establish or partner with transfer hubs near major interchanges. The goal is seamless integration. Human driver drops the trailer, autonomous truck picks it up almost immediately, maximize that uptime.
Right, it really drives home the point that this huge shift is underway, but it's happening, like you said, quietly, in the background of the supply chains we all rely on. This quiet revolution is already boosting efficiency by automating the least complex but maybe most time-consuming part of the journey.
Exactly. And if we extrapolate from this, connect it to the bigger picture, well, the trajectory seems pretty clear for the medium term. The expectation is that the middle mile, that long-distance freight movement between major metro areas, will increasingly become automated. handled by autonomous trucks operating between these strategic ATHs, probably within the next decade or so.
So what does that mean for the human drivers then?
It suggests human drivers aren't being eliminated. Their roles are shifting, becoming more specialized, perhaps even more critical. They'll likely be focused on those complex first and final miles, the intricate city maneuvers, dealing with unexpected obstacles, navigating tight loading docks, maybe even customer interaction, tasks requiring judgment, negotiation, and that real-world adaptability.
And the hubs themselves will evolve too, presumably. They won't stay just drop-off points. The sources hint at more tech integration.
Oh, absolutely. The vision is for these hubs to become much smarter, much more automated over time. True high-tech switching stations. The goal is to minimize friction and delay during the transfer. We're talking about things like automated trailer coupling systems, eventually no human needed to back up perfectly to connect. Also, smart access controls, sophisticated sensor arrays to monitor everything, maybe even automated charging or refueling infrastructure.
Wow, what about when things go wrong? Like unexpected issues at the hub?
That's where a concept called teleoperations comes in. Critically important. Imagine a human expert sitting in a remote control center hundreds of miles away. They can monitor the operations at multiple hubs. If an autonomous truck encounters a tricky situation it can't resolve, maybe a severe, unexpected blizzard right at the hub entrance, or a sensor malfunction, or even just a misplaced cone, the teleoperator can remotely supervise, provide guidance, or even briefly take control to navigate the issue. This ensures transfers remain smooth and safe, even with edge cases, without needing a human physically present at every single truck around the clock. It keeps the whole chain moving efficiently.
Okay, so this whole shift is incredibly impactful then. These ATHs are fundamentally transforming the middle mile, taking it from what was often a monotonous, costly bottleneck, heavily reliant on drivers managing fatigue, and turning it into a potentially highly efficient, technology-enabled, maybe even continuous link in the supply chain. It really does feel like the pragmatic, incremental step that proves the value of autonomy while we wait for the harder problems to be solved. So, if you take one key thing away from our deep dive today, maybe it's this. The trucking revolution isn't necessarily this sudden, full takeover by robots you might picture. It's more about strategic collaboration, specialized rules for humans and machines. This ATH approach seems geared to make freight logistics faster, cheaper, safer, and ultimately much more resilient to things like labor shortages and regulatory hurdles.
And this shift, it raises a really important question to think about. If automation reliably takes over the long, predictable highway routes, freeing humans from those grueling schedules, does the sheer complexity of urban logistics, that final mile delivery, navigating dense traffic, finding parking, dealing with unpredictable loading docks, does that become the most valuable, high-skill, and maybe even best compensated niche for human drivers in the future? The job isn't vanishing, it's fundamentally changing shape.
That completely reframes the future of the profession, doesn't it? Something for us all to consider. Well, thank you for diving deep with us today. We really hope this gives you a new perspective. Maybe next time you see a long-haul truck on the highway, you'll wonder about the quiet revolution happening in that middle mile, getting goods closer to your door.